I think that you guys have nothing.
So welcome everyone. It's good to see all of you here. My name is Ilona Nagy, and go ahead and introduce yourself, Jody. I've been remiss the past few weeks with introductions.
Oh, you're good.
So-
My name is Jody Key, and I'm a HOME-ARP specialist.
And I'm Ilona Nagy, and I too am a HOME-ARP specialist. Kelly will probably not be joining us today. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about referrals and compliance for your HOME-ARP non-congregate shelter applications. This is just a good general overview too with who you're working with essentially, and then how to report out to us. And so, and now's the time also to ask questions. And so that is something that we're gonna have an opportunity for as well. And so we have a comment. Hello. And I've heard that our jokes are terrible, and yes, and that's what makes dad jokes wonderful. So let's go ahead and get started. The agenda today is going to be just feedback from all of the submissions that we received, referrals and compliance overview, and then those key takeaways, and then any questions that y'all have in between. We're going to have that available as well. So pull up my chat here so I can keep up with that. So first of all, submission feedback. So I think for the most part, everyone did really good with your submissions. You guys did a great job, and we're going to talk about more about specific needs. We decided to do those meetings. So hopefully all 8 submissions, there was 8 total, you all have major appointments. And so if you are a part of a team and you're not aware of a meeting date, you're going to want to connect with your team lead around that for the date of your meeting, just in case, to make sure you're included. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to meet with y'all and tell you just what we noticed that was awesome and fabulous, and maybe some points to get stronger on. And then also to talk about the next submission, so that way y'all feel prepared going in, and how to get started on that. I highly recommend, as we're going through these things, that you complete those areas while we're going through them. And you're more than welcome to submit prior to September 15th. Please know that. So it doesn't have to be all on, that Friday. So you could submit that Thursday or Wednesday, or you can even submit tomorrow if you really feel confident enough. So just letting you know that you don't have to wait. And so that's that piece. So I don't know what's going on in your offices. I know y'all have plates overflowing. So I know this is fit into a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry that to those of you who this applies to, that it's also going through the whole COC piece, that it is running consecutively to that. That was not the intention. So sadly, HUD did that as well. So my condolences regarding that. So not good. I totally understand. Well, not completely understand, I shouldn't say that. I know that it's a heavy lift. So let me just put it like that. So making sure that the information is community and location specific and not necessarily state specific. So what we saw a few times was it was around the need for your population in the state as a whole, and not necessarily relevant to why the non-congregate shelter needs to be developed in your city with your organization. That's essentially why we wanted the data specific design to be a part of it, is to know why your organization should be building this building at this location. And so looking forward, and we'll talk about this more specifically in your meetings too, but looking forward with the rest of your submissions, just be sure to think in that space as far as really stating why this needs to be built in this area. Okay, so just take a look at that. The additional information y'all did great on, really trying to supply us with all the info. When you didn't have the info, you all put, informed us as far as this doesn't, it's not relevant to us, and you gave us that extra little piece of paper, which is great. So then that way we don't need to look. So that was really wonderful. Also, some of you added additional tables and tabs to your worksheets, which was wonderful. You guys highlighted things well. You did a great job. So I wanted to give you kudos on that. Also, interpreting your information. So this goes to the state specific piece about not just giving it to us to figure it out. So saying, here's all the info, just use this to figure out why you need to develop the building here for this reason. Take us through the whys. Look at your 5 whys plus. It doesn't even just need to be 5. It can be 6 or 10. And get to the heart of why you want to build a non-congregate shelter. What's your core reasoning? And expressing that. The narrative piece is going to be submitted in this next part. And so that's a good time to start really talking about your whys. And I mean, this is important information for everything that you do, because we all know about this, and you guys can all go back to any kind of education that you've had, whether it be formal theory and such in school, or just really working with an organization long term, that it's so easy to go in a different direction with your organization. And they call it, the organizational shift, and you cosmically shift to another thing. And you want to kind of stay on point and relevant to your mission. And so we want to know why this is important for you. And you could do the basic just 'cause. We want to know something a little bit deeper. And so, and it's important for you guys too. It's not just for us. And agencies should be doing this regularly. Every 3 to 5 years, you should really take a look at everything that you're doing and saying, is it really mission focused? Is this really what we're wanting to do? So just that's my nonprofit background stuff going on. So please forgive me if I overspeak in that sense, but just this is why we have that in there. Just be sure all your areas are complete. So again, if you can start like the finished project a week before and start reviewing things over and over again to make sure you're not missing anything, that's great, because we had some of the workbooks that weren't actually finished. So so that was important. And then also start putting together all of your questions. So when you're meeting with the 3 of us, what are all of the questions that you could possibly have? We did kind of create some buffer time. And please forgive the booking site. It's the first time I've ever done anything at that level, and it didn't exactly work out the way I wanted it to, or close, but it's not the cleanest. And so some of you have meetings on the quarter of an hour. That was not the intention, but that's what the booking site did. So please forgive that. But for the most part, we want to be laser. We want to be very clear and focused. We don't want to necessarily get into a whole lot of general conversation if we don't have to. We want to be able to make 30 minutes really count. Okay, so that's a great question, Courtney. So she stated, when are the meetings to be held? How will the organizations be contacted for those meetings? Those emails had already gone out to the person who sent in the submission. So the person who emailed us, we sent them the booking site for that. So you're going to want to talk to the person who submitted your application. Okay, and that's why I made that comment. So. Okay, cool. So if you aren't familiar with the date, then you're going to need to talk to the person who submitted your application. Okay, are we all clear on that? I think we are. Okay. So are there any questions regarding this? Also, the list of applicants is posted to the site. It's on the application page under the August 15th date. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. And I think that's it. Okay, no questions. Okay, next. So let's talk about referrals and this training. Okay. A big part of this particular area with referrals and compliance is going to be heavily policy based. And so as you can see here, the required documentation, your record keeping policies, intake and eligibility assessments, your affirmative fair housing marketing plan, because we're building a building, we have to do that too. Your MOUs and things. So let me be super clear on this. Since this is a program that you're integrating into all of your programs, please, 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 please don't write anything from scratch if you don't have to. We would hope that you would be adding on your non-congregate shelter into what you already have established. Okay. So what we're asking for is kind of, it's just an add-on. And if you don't happen to have these in place, it's a good idea for you to get them in place. And so, so please don't do any extra work unless this may be something you may need to write. Okay, so again, utilize what you've already got. Don't recreate the wheel, and just make the non-congregate shelter a bonus piece. Okay. So, and then in these documents, I would recommend having it as a draft with all the non-congregate shelter pieces added in and then highlighted. So that way we can see it. We don't have to read, because we want to know, you know, we're not going to read your entire record keeping policy. It may be really long depending on what kind of records you need to keep. So, but we would like to know just kind of the highlights. And so include the whole thing, highlight where we need to look for sure. And we may decide to read your record keeping policy, or someone on our team who's reviewing may decide to read it. But for the most part, just try and kind of keep it simplified and just alert us to where you need to go. So make a draft, non-congregate shelter draft, highlight all the non-congregate shelter pieces and submit that as to what it would be, because we know that nothing is for sure yet. No one's been worded. And so we can understand the reason for the draft. Okay. Questions? Okay, moving on. Referral overview. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Right, what you were just talking about are record keeping policies and all the different policies. I have a lot of my record keeping policy in my policy and procedures manual. Do I just take that portion?
Or you could submit your updated policies and procedures manual. That's fine. You should be updating your policies and procedures manual to include non-congregate shelter anyway.
Yeah.
So that's
a big manual.
But I mean, but like I said, you have it's probably a good 50 to 100 pages.
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, so there's areas in there you could do one of two things. You can pepper non-congregate shelter and just add it into all the different areas, which is fine. Or you can just add an addendum to the whole thing at the end. So then that way it's less burdensome.
Thank you.
Okay, does that, your voice does not sound hopeful, Rachel. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just swallowing water. So thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay, no, it's fine. No need to do that either. So okay, so that's, yeah, just you have options. Again, we just want to make sure that you're thinking about it on the large scale, long term. So if that means adding an addendum, great. If that means adding something to what you already have, great. Don't overcomplicate it. Okay, please don't overcomplicate it. Because we understand, again, you guys have a lot going on. Okay. Okay, so referral overview. So I'm going to bring the sheet over. And so go. So this is the referral overview. I'm going to make it big enough for everyone. Okay, so ultimately for referrals, and then we'll move into compliance in a second. So referrals. This is your opportunity to kind of just let us know who you're working with and how that's looking. Okay. The general way to bring people into any agency who assists the community, and this is basic 101 stuff, so I'm just repeating what y'all know. You have to intake and assess where they're at. You need to prioritize where they are in your system. Now that could be first come, first serve, or it could be the vulnerability index, which is great. And then documentation of qualified population status. So if they're disabled, if they have someone who's a part of the domestic violence or VAWA population, veterans, you name it. So it's a pretty basic requirement. Y'all should be doing this anyway. Okay. Again, just adding an addendum, adding parts to your current scenarios about how it fits in. And then how you're going to be getting your referrals. Some of you are a part of coordinated entry systems. Fabulous. Include how it will look in your coordinated entry system. And I know that several of you have probably already been writing parts of this. So just shift it to accommodate non-congregate shelter. Okay, so again, you don't have to start from scratch. It's okay if you build this from something else. Okay. However, you do need to be made aware that this is expanded coordinated entry. It's not traditional because currently coordinated entry, the definition of homelessness looks a lot different than not a lot. It looks different than the McKinney-Vento version. Okay, so know that it's not just individuals who are not they're in a place that they're in a place that's not fit for human habitation. It's an expanded version that includes doubling up or tripling up, couch surfing, those types of situations as well. So just think about that when you're looking at the coordinated entry system and how this program will fit into it.
Alana, we have another question in the chat from
Yeah.
Rachel. HMIS training, where can we go for that updated training?
That's great. All the information I have is on the website. So I've been kind of referring to that site. Let me, I need to ask Josh and his team where that's at. I don't know, some of you who are already on HMIS may know the answer to that. I don't have as much access to those trainings, but I know that it started on the website. The other thing too is I know that we have staff that goes out and trains on HMIS, so we may need to do something. Repost the site. Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. I will, but I'll probably do it towards the end when I have a chance to look. Okay, so I'll let you know. And so basically for the recording, it says HMIS training, where can we go for that updated training? And she asked for a repost to the site and where to go in order to make sure that y'all are looking in the right place. So yeah, absolutely. And then any partnering agencies you have for your development, and if there's any specific non-congregate shelter development efforts as far as what you're doing for the referrals. Okay, so that is not just partnering agencies, but if there's specific referrals that you're getting for the non-congregate shelter and that development that you're kind of working on. Okay. So going ahead and talking about your intake and assessment process, and supply any of the supportive policy and documents that you're using. So if there's a particular assessment that you're using, if there's a particular prioritization piece that looks different than what we're used to, or the one that we are used to, so that way we can be clear about what you're doing, just backing up all of your documentation and information. So, okay. Are there any questions around that? I think for most of you, I'm just restating what you already know. Okay. And several of you are already putting this into other applications. I know that. Okay. So, and this next one is kind of important too, and this goes back to the Affirmative Fair Housing Marketing Plan. So how will you ensure all HOME-ARP qualifying populations have access to your non-congregate shelter? So you have to remember that the qualifying populations, since it's broader, you need to make sure that everyone has access, okay? So because it doesn't necessarily fit into snugly into the coordinated entry system, others are going to be outside of that. So if you are working closely with coordinated entry, which you should be doing, for others who may be couch surfing or, you know, doubled or tripled up those situations and go through coordinated entry, how are you going to make sure they get to you? Okay, so thinking the full system and what it's going to look like and taking a good hard look at the population piece. Yes, Evan, go ahead. You can unmute.
Hey, Lorna. So this is great for me to hear because it sounds a little bit, our focus for this particular development is going to be single individuals with, you know, some level of disability. Who are typically chronically homeless, and that's going to be our focus. And typically those individuals fall within the coordinated entry current definitions for homeless. However, are you guys, you know, so there might be a single individual that might be living on a brother or sister's couch or something like that that still fits within this definition. So you would recommend us to open up our eligibility requirements for this population as well.
You have to.
If we're okay. All right.
You have to.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that because I was not considering that, but yeah, that's good to know. Okay.
No, and that's actually, there's a really great, and we can repost it. I posted it a little bit ago. There was a really great training that HUD had. So you guys can go on HUD Exchange around HOME-ARP and the expanded coordinated entry piece. And so they talked about that because you can't deny someone for not being kind of the whole HUD technically homeless. You have to look at McKinney-Vento. So that's why we're actually focusing on this section in the application.
Okay. As
much as we are, just because we need you guys to be thinking outside of your traditional box. And I know it's kind of, I know that Josh and his team have worked really hard to help you guys think in the sense of what homelessness looks like. And now we're kind of crushing that a little bit. And so
no,
that's,
I actually kind of like the fact that you're expanding the definition a little bit. So, you know,
so yeah,
we're so used to being restricted here.
Right. So for non-congregate shelter, you can think outside of that box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another quick clip, because, you know, our focus is individuals, you know, with a severe mental illness or a co-occurring substance use. So are you also saying that if someone comes in and they do not have a diagnosis, then we must consider them, or are we? And there's not a wrong answer here. I mean, I think I just need to know what, you know, what our things.
HUD has not been as clear around that, if I'm going to be honest. Okay. I think that because here's where the difficulty comes in, and I'll use a very, very obvious kind of situation. So if your program tends to serve just women, okay, that is or just men. Some homeless shelters are just men oriented or just women oriented. So bringing in the non-congregate shelter piece is supposed to allow, I think, for more opportunities for a greater population in a way. And so for the severe and persistent mental illness piece, which I know is, sorry, I'm kind of just thinking this through as we're talking. So kind of yes and no. I think the prioritization, because it's okay for you guys to use the VI SPDAT. That's prioritized by homelessness. It's okay to bring people into the shelter. I would just say you need to have a good reason and how to help people who don't necessarily fit into your population. Okay, so the homeless piece, so they can be other kinds of homeless, but I don't think you have to limit. You have to look at all 6 groups, but you don't necessarily have to serve all 6 groups. But what I would recommend though, Evan, and everyone else on the call, is if, for example, if you mainly serve people with severe and persistent mental illness, and now it opens up the housing opportunities to house people coming not only from maybe an encampment, but also from their, the sofa of their cousin or a family member. You can go ahead and use this, but if you have someone come in who does not have severe and persistent mental illness, they're not a part of the population that you're serving. What I would like to see is a great way for you to, I'm trying to think of the
Respond.
Yeah, respond, but also it's the D word, divert. It's not divert, but it is diversion. That's what it is. So divert them to another program to make sure that they stay housed. So
Okay.
what I would do is I would put that into your plans. So, and if you look at both if you look at all of our initial PowerPoints that talk about the different populations, if you look at the implementation, I think it's 2110 and it's all in your packet, guys. It's in that that resources. I think it's number 9, file number 9. It had the implementation guide in there for HOME-ARP. And so they go through all the different populations, and one of the main populations is also domestic violence. And I think veterans is a part of it, along with homeless, at risk of homelessness. And I forget what the other 2 are. So, but if they don't fit into the box that you're creating for your shelter, then make sure you have a diversion plan to help them get assistance.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm already thinking about how I'm going to write this. And then basically,
Okay.
I think, what we were trying to do with this particular development is get the higher need individuals in that. And if an individual does come to us in that process, they may be a better fit for like a shorter term rapid rehousing. Because they don't have an active substance use or something. So we might be able to demonstrate that we're going to divert them there because they're more set up, ready for independent living. They just need 6 months or 9 months of assistance. They find employment, they'll be good to go, versus someone else who might need a little bit more support for that.
Right.
And I think that's how we would do it. But we want to be able to demonstrate to you guys that we are not denying anybody services or access to Advantage, and we're not. Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
So that's because we just want to make sure that this is another, that they get the full breadth of what they can, because clearly everyone who's coming to a non-congregate shelter is in need. They need support in some way. So just making sure you have a way to continue that support.
Okay. Good stuff. Thank you for
good question. That was great. That helped everyone. So thank you for being the teacher in the moment.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Does anyone else have, because this is kind of a big section, so, and I know you all have very diverse populations, because, and to Evan's point again, I mean, if you're a domestic violence shelter, you cannot serve the general population. Y'all know that. So almost had a glass issue. So, that's another example. So if you get someone who is interested in your services, thank you. I figured that may pop up. So Rachel, let me finish the statement and it may answer your question. And then if not, you can unmute. So if you have someone come up who may not be able to use your services, make sure you have options in order to refer them to someplace who does. So again, to the same situation, just a little different, not mental health, but with domestic violence, you cannot serve everyone. And like I said, it may be in this circumstance, maybe you're wanting a non-congregate shelter in order, if you mainly serve women, maybe you serve men who are leaving a domestic violence situation. Okay, so then that way you can go ahead and honor both groups. And so that may be, but then also talk about if you have someone else coming to you, how you assist them with support. Okay, so Rachel, do you still have your question? Do you need to unmute?
All right, could you just, you said about non-domestic, okay, so our plan is we have 5 2-bedroom, 5 1-bedroom facility. So we do have men already, but they choose to be in the hotel.
That's great, okay.
So are you saying that if they come to me, I can't have the men in an apartment and the women in their apartment? I can't have both on that property?
No, you can do that. You can absolutely do that. Just explain it to us.
Okay.
That's
All
fine.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Just
see.
explain how you're going to serve everyone. Yep. Okay. Jody, can you see any other? I feel like I didn't want to make something grayer than it needs to be. I feel like I'm making it
sounded
messy.
great.
Okay. Anything?
It's almost
Anything
like
else you can think
coordinated
of?
entry. It's almost like coordinated entry within, or right outside of coordinated entry. You're doing your own little coordinated entry to make sure, like you said, that you do divert
Please
people
don't say that.
where they need to go.
As so many people who are part of coordinated entry here, they're like, no, please don't. Because I know they've all worked really hard to create a good regional system. But yes, it's kind of like outside, we're coloring outside of the lines in this area, guys. So we just want to know where you're coloring. Again, just kind of give us a roadmap for what you're doing and what that looks like. And like I said, you can look at past information around who qualifies for kind of the non-congregate shelter piece, and also look at and if it's like right at the top, I think it's page 3 or page 4 that talks specifically about the populations in the implementation notice for HOME-ARP. Okay, so then that way you're familiar with the regs, because they're really, I mean, they're not too crazy, but there's some stuff in there that's important to know. Okay, so we're going to talk about compliance. So it really is important for you to know. Okay, so next I'm going to move on to referral description. So this is kind of just an extension of what we were just talking about. So you don't necessarily have to repeat it twice on one tab and then the other. Just if you want to look through the whole thing and kind of plan how you want to talk about it in both sections, okay? Because here we talk about, how is your agency currently a part of coordinated entry and the homeless management information system? As far as integrating coordinated entry and HMIS, how is that going to look? And then, like, does your project have written procedures for maintaining a wait list and what that looks like? So again, all of this really talks about how people are going to come into your program, how they're going to get served. If they don't get served, why? What are the steps you're going to take? And this really is just, again, to make sure that we're helping as many people as we can, and doing as much as we can. And we know that your agencies are not all knowing and all doing. I totally acknowledge that. And as much as it seems like everyone requires you to be, but in the sense of, what can you do as far as your part in helping people maybe get to the next resource that's going to help them if you can't. Okay, so what are you going to do for that stopgap? And so, and again, this is just good information to kind of be thinking about in general for your agency, because, it's hard to navigate all of our systems when you're under stress and duress. And we all know that. I'm just repeating stuff that you guys already know. So just expressing what that looks like for your agency, how you serve and love people, how you take care of them, and how they're referred to your project. So just all of those little pinpoints. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna see if I don't think there's any questions. Okay. So compliance, where are we at with time? Oh, good. We're way good on time. Okay. So here is a first thing, just to let y'all know. Well, actually, you know what? I'll do that at the end. So does your non-congregate shelter have an ethics policy in place? So just take the ethics policy that you have and get it to us, add non-congregate shelter to it. If you need to put, it in an addendum, that's fine too. And then also what steps, that's a typo, have been taken to ensure all appropriate parties have been trained in the policy and abide by it. So this is just what you're doing in order to make sure that your staff is up to date on what they need to do with compliance and ethics. Okay. And you should probably be going through an ethics training every year anyway. So just what does that look like for your agency? And so here's the next piece. So monitoring. Just to let you all know, HUD has not been, someone's just coming in. HUD has not put together what their compliance piece is yet formally for HOME-ARP. Okay, so just be aware of that. They've not they've not told us yet all the bits and pieces we're going to be requiring from you. But what I am going to say is that it's probably going to look very similar to kind of parts of the HOME program. So you have to remember HOME has TBRA in it. It has CHIP, which builds houses for people through agencies, whether it be a city or it actually is a nonprofit. You have to qualify, you have to income qualify. So there's a lot of different kind of face-to-face, one-on-one kind of programs with HOME that do a lot of individual qualification too. It's probably going to be pretty close to that. Okay. So we're going to be doing monitoring annually. And so just remember that for the non-congregate shelter, the restrictive period is 10 years that we'll be monitoring if you're rehabbing, or 15 years if you're building new. Okay. So, and if you're just acquiring with the money, it's 10 years. Okay. Without rehabilitation. So just know, you know, put that into kind of your back of your brain. Actually, I'd probably say not front burner, but not back burner. You want a middle burner, this one. So that way you can really be thinking about eligibility. The other thing too that you may want to consider is figuring out a way, just, and this is kind of my background with public housing of sorts. Jody has way better public housing background than I do, but the practice in public housing is to actually have a separate folder. So if you have a tax credit folder, you have that for all your tax credit requirements, which I know you guys aren't doing tax credit, I realize that, but then also a HUD folder, because there's, if people fall into kind of the HUD group, they have certain reviews that you need to do. And like, if you're not qualified to review them, like people have had them be in different, you know, rooms. It's kind of crazy. So just think about how also you're going to add this filing system into your system. And if that means that you're going to have like a folder within a folder, HOME-ARP is probably pretty similar. When we do our CAPER and our reviews, it's included with HOPWA and ESG, so it may be able to be kind of right alongside those two. So it may probably have similar requirements to that as well. So it could be included just in that information. So when you're thinking about your filing systems, just think about how you're going to include the HOME-ARP piece into everything else. And then make a checklist. So then that way it's, and you don't necessarily have to include it, not at this time. But start thinking about how you're going to be organizing your files for the individuals and who qualifies. So Rachel, what's your question?
Sorry to be a pest, but
no, you ask
can
good
you
questions.
please clarify? You talked about the monitoring piece, and then you said 15 years if it's new construction, you'll be monitoring, and then you said 10 years if we're just getting the money. I might not have heard that right, so I'm applying new. And I'm applying for the new construction. Is that 15 years or 10 years?
It would be 15 years. So the acquisition money, so let me clarify that then. With the acquisition money, that is if you don't have to rehab the building.
Okay.
Or I guess if you do rehab the building, it would still be 10 years. But if you're doing an acquisition rehab, it'll be 10 years. But if you're building new, it'll be 15.
Great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. So again, with the organizational steps that I put into place to comply with the monitoring requirements, just what that's going to look like with your files and how that's going to play out. So you've just starting to help you think how the non-congregate shelter requirements are going to fit into the systems that you already have. Okay. And then, and this probably should have been on the checklist, but include your written organizational policy in the application documents folder. Okay. So, and then, oh, wonder where those went. So sorry, for some reason I lost the lines. There we go. So looking at, let me see what we're doing with time. We have about 15 minutes left. So just be sure to kind of walk through this. This isn't as I guess, long as others are, but it kind of just goes back through what you're already putting together, you know, making sure your participant entrance and to exit process is clearly defined. It's kind of a given. Currently using HMIS or willing to use it in your operations. And if you're a DV group, just talking about the options that you're using for homeless management information systems, because I know you're not a part of the large scope with that. Just clear description of the referral process for the qualifying populations. And then a plan to coordinate with other systems of care. So what are you doing to integrate this program into what already exists? Any kind of training that you receive for your personnel and what's in the manual. And then monitoring. And so things that you're going to do to comply with. Okay, I'll answer that in a second, Rachel. With monitoring, the agency acknowledges that it will comply with the grant monitoring process. Okay, and then, which we just talked about with regards to monitoring. And then demonstrate that you're able to commence and be fully completed. And the funds expended with all reimbursement requests processed within 3 years. So just remember that, you know, within 2024, so if you're awarded, you have to start building in 2024. So that's something to really consider, guys. Okay, so it can't just be plans. We've got to actually start the building within the first 12 months. Okay, so we're going to do the administrative stuff at the beginning of the year, end of 2023, beginning of 2024. That includes the environmental pieces and things like that, wrapping all those up. If there's any other procurement stuff to consider, okay? And then full force, you know, for the rest of the year. So just think that breaking ground needs to happen before December 2024 with your project and what that looks like, okay? So Rachel asked a question regarding self-scoring. What was the real purpose of that if no one reads what we did in our self-score? Thank you. We are going to read your self-score. This is totally applicable. This kind of lets us know, and it also is to let you know kind of what we're looking at and what you're seeing too. It's a way for us to kind of have a communication as far as the scoring of your application. So it's not just there's many reasons for it. It also gives you an idea of what we're looking at when we're scoring, so that way you're fully aware. So if you're wanting to max out, so let's, for example, okay. So for the shelter programming, so the entrance to exit is clearly defined and articulated. So you go ahead and talk about the assessment. You include your assessment. You talk about the integration into coordinated entry and how it moves outside of the coordinated, you know, the expanded coordinated entry and what it looks like. You know, if someone has to be terminated and those pieces and referring them to the next thing that they need to go to. How you work with other agencies to receive those referrals and then showing that all in your manual, your policies and procedures, how to make sure that everyone's aware of that, showing that the staff is trained on that and the ethics involved, you know, even showing maybe in the document how they sign a little piece at the bottom, you know, to say that they've reviewed it and they understand and know it. Those things kind of, that would be considered really an excellent way of ensuring that everything, no stone is unturned with regarding participant entrance to exit process and defined and articulated. If you're really clear on that, you know, that's something we're going to look at and we're going to score it. So yes, we understand that that self-score can be subjective to a point, and some people may think they're really, really excellent and it may not be quite so much, or some people may think it's just minimal and it's really, really excellent. So, but this gives us kind of a jumping off point to kind of see how you see yourself, and then also when we score to kind of do a jumping off point as far as who should get funded, and where and why and all of those pieces. So then that way we make sure that all of it is aligned, because there's a really good, we want to make sure that if you ask us, why did I get scored this? We can show you the big picture of everything, and that's included. Okay. This is also a best practice that we've taken from our housing finance department, and that's why we did it as well, because they do the self-scoring too. Can you repeat what you mentioned about the written organizational policy we need to add to the submission checklist? Okay. So it's right here, Courtney. It's on the compliance overview. In the bottom piece here. And that just happened to get missed from the checklist. So it's at the bottom of the compliance overview. Please include your written organizational policy in the application folder, documentation folder. If you're good with that, give me a thumbs up. Or I'll wait for your thumbs up. Okay, so Rachel, so we will see our first place score when we meet with you. Actually, we're not going to have the time to review that. And for your first submissions, what's going to happen is we're going to kind of go over the general need that we, okay, great, perfect, that we have for you. Your final scores for all your 8 sections will be available after when we give you your final when we decide who gets funded and who doesn't. We'll have all of that lined up so that way you can see how you scored. So, but we are going to give you feedback from your application. So it's probably not going to be with the self-scoring, because we kind of want to see other pieces as well. And it'll make more sense once you're in your there may be things that you're going to want to add based on our conversation to your second submission. And so we want to be able to look at the big picture when we do the scoring all together. Does that make more sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So that's why we're having the meetings with you. So then that way, if there are any gaps, you guys can fill those in the next submission. And so we don't want to give you a score right off the bat at that time. Okay. Okay. Whew. Here we go. So we talked about all of these different areas. And I just copied what we had on those sheets. So really the biggest takeaways, guys. Awesome, no problem. Yeah, Rachel, we got to thank you for that question. So make sure you see that. So read each question and make sure you understand them. If you have any questions, please reach out to us again. We're here. I mean, we have we have 2 more reviews. We have the add-ons review. No, you're not a pest. Sorry, just a side comment. Rachel said she's not a pest, and no, you're not a pest. Again, we love the questions. Questions are good. So again, speaking of questions, if you guys have questions, everyone learns from the questions, so please ask them. We're going to be here for another 2 weeks before your submissions, so definitely come with questions on hand. If you want to go ahead and submit them via our form online, that's fine too. So that's great. Again, like we've talked about, and I don't want to beat a horse, a dead horse, not a live horse. I don't even want to beat a dead horse, actually. So use the policies and manuals you already have and adjust them to include the non-congregate shelter. So if that means an addendum, great. If that means adding to it and you want to use that, great. Just send us the draft and highlight what you've changed in your updates, and we're good. So please, think about this very when you're looking at this section, guys. This is kind of like, hopefully this has all led to, everything we've talked about has led to this point. And so starting to fit in all the non-congregate shelter pieces into your programs and what that looks like on a big scale. Okay, so this should naturally kind of come into the next, this should be a natural progression for you. So, so use those policies and procedures based on everything you've learned about the non-congregate shelter program, how you want to integrate it, what the funding looks like, how the operations looks like, everything. Now it's time to actually put it kind of into place. Okay. Be as specific as possible with your descriptions and explain how your agency will complete the referral and compliance tasks. It's okay to write a lot of information in this. I mean, granted, we don't want you to have to write too much information. Please don't overdo it. But also, you know, if you have space to explain, it's okay. That's why we're doing it. Again, hopefully, once you've explained this, for other grants that you want to do in the future, you can replicate it. And if you have to trim it down, you can, but it's great that you have something to start from, okay? So again, this whole process is not just for now. We hope that you use this for lots of grants in the future. So get us all the information you can. Like I said before, program monitoring guidelines for this particular HUD program have not yet been released. Until then, all HOME-ARP programs will follow the monitoring guidelines sent out by HUD in the HOME program. So just kind of get your mind around that and then ask any questions. Like we keep saying, it helps everyone in the process. So I don't know if we have any other questions right now. So, and we got our final dad joke before we all go, because we have 8 minutes, 8 minutes left. Did you hear about the monster who ate the house? He was homesick. Poor guy. Or he got homesick, right? So that's really cute. I love it. Thanks for adding that, Rachel. So what other questions do y'all have? Yes, it was very applicable. So guys, you know, like I said, we're just here to help. We're trying to make this different on purpose. So then that way you guys can have something to jump from. And this is part of that. You guys got to think about how you're getting referrals and how you're referring people out, and then how to be in compliance with the programs you already have. So I hope you take the time to kind of fit it into your current system and see what it would look like, because this is going to be a little different. It's going to kind of shift some things. So, I mean, we have about 5-ish minutes left. We can wait about 60 seconds. If any, I know we have a question possibly being typed in, so that's great. Here, I'll break out another question. I'll break out another dad joke while we wait for the question. I love this. It's perfect. Bad puns. That's how I roll. E-Y-E. I roll. Okay, here's the question. For the staffing document, do we need to include each position that is filled, or do we just include the filled positions? That's a great question, Courtney. So what I would do is I would probably state who would be kind of assigned to the non-congregate shelter from who you already have. And then if you have new positions that you want to fill for the non-congregate shelter, then just go ahead and state those job descriptions and that they're unfilled. So that way we know how you're going to kind of spread out the current people in your group to the non-congregate shelter. And then who else you need to hire. But then also, you know, because this does not fund operations, you're also going to need to show how you're going to be funding those people. So I know we went over the budgets ahead of time, and if there's shifting in that, then we're going to give you a space to update that if need be. Okay, so I think that's it. We've got all our chats in. We've got about 4 minutes left. Anyone else? But that was a great question. Thank you for asking that, Courtney. Okay. Okay, so why should you never count money on an anthill, like sitting on an anthill? Because you might find ants in your pants. Yes, these are really bad. Oh, the HMIS training. Thank you, Doug, for finding that. Woo-hoo! Yay! Community is helping the community. Woo! I'm so happy about that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's perfect. Okay. Well, we'll give you guys 3 minutes back. And actually I'll make sure to send that out to Doug. So thanks for finding that. I'll send it out because it's the person who left actually needed that. So I will go ahead and make sure that she gets it. So, okay, guys. Well, bad jokes and all. I hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy the last few weeks of what is technically considered summer. And I know everyone's back in school now. So if you have any other questions, let us know. And love that these are being recorded as we get to revisit these jokes over and over. Yes. Okay, that's it, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Laugh. You guys are doing awesome. I'm so grateful for all of you and participating, and you guys are fabulous. We're so grateful. So we're looking forward to seeing what you guys have for us in a few weeks. So you can take care, and we'll see you next Thursday, okay? Bye.